Welcome to the dairies of science fiction, where extraordinary stories come to life. Enjoy the journey. When he was brought to the door, no one looked at him. That's the clearest sign a person has survived. If people avoid your gaze, they consider you a survivor. The corridor was cold. The metal walls trembled slightly as if they were breathing. I heard sounds from afar, or maybe I didn't. These fragments always had different origins from their regions, even screams. This room, someone said, their voice trembling, was the last for everyone who entered it. They indicated they didn't dare tell me whether they dared me or not. No one dared me. The warnings above the door flashed, red, then red again. Symbols written in alien letters mixed with the human alphabet. They all had one meaning. Do not approach, but I count. It shattered him for the first time. Like everyone else, only uncertainties emerged. Shattered armor, bent steel, dark marks splattered on the walls. And moments when the cameras refused to record. The error in the entry system was no coincidence. They told me, she's a woman. And angry. The air inside changed when the door opened. It was denser. It had to be more powerful. It was as if there was another atmosphere within the events, the breath of another world. A step is taken inside. The door closed. Everyone in the watching compartment held their breath. I, however, let out the first scream. But this scream wasn't from fear, because when she looked at me, there was no ferocity in her eyes. There was just something that had been waiting for a long time, and to right at that moment. If this room were to fall silent, it wouldn't be because of death. The silence didn't come all at once. It crept in, inch by inch, like something alive learning how to breathe. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Not blood, not decay. Something sharper, metallic, mixed with a faint sweetness I couldn't place. Alien air, maybe, or fear that had been trapped here for too long. She stood at the far end of the room. They never showed her full body on the monitors. Not because they couldn't, but because anyone who saw her completely never stayed sane long enough to describe it. What I saw now was taller than I expected, slimmer, her posture unnervingly calm. Her skin caught the dim light in a way that made it look almost unreal, pale with a subtle hue that shifted when she moved. Her eyes were fixed on me, not hunting, not angry, studying. I had been briefed on what to do if she attacked. There were protocols, emergency triggers, kill switches buried in the walls. None of them mattered now. The moment the door sealed behind me, I understood a truth no report had ever captured. She had already decided my fate. My hands shook, but I didn't raise them. I didn't step back either. Something deep inside me, older than training, older than fear, told me that sudden movement would end everything. "You're not supposed to understand me," I said, my voice sounding foreign in that room. Her head tilted slightly. A gesture too precise to be animal, too patient to be instinct. The cameras should have caught what happened next. Later I learned they hadn't. Every system went dark for exactly 6 seconds, just long enough for history to change. She moved, not toward me, around me. I felt it before I saw it. A pressure not on my skin but behind my eyes, like someone brushing against my thoughts without asking permission. I gasped, dropping to one knee, my breath tearing out of my chest. Images flashed through my mind. Fire, metal tearing, screams that weren't human, and then silence, vast and heavy. The kind that exists after a world burns. She was behind me now. I didn't hear her footsteps. I didn't feel her touch. Yet I knew exactly where she stood, as if my body had memorized her presence. "Is that why?" I whispered. "Is that why you kill them?" Her answer wasn't words, it was grief. Raw, endless grief pressed into my skull until tears blurred my vision. I understood then. She hadn't been screaming when they brought her here. She had been mourning. I turned slowly. She was close. Closer than any of the guards had ever allowed anyone to be. Her face, God, her face, wasn't monstrous. It was sharp, elegant, framed by features that shouldn't have worked together yet somehow did. Her eyes glowed faintly, not with rage but recognition. She reached out. Every instinct I had screamed at me to run. I didn't. Her fingers brushed my wrist. The room went completely silent. No alarms, no screams, no death. Just us, outside. They would later say the screaming stopped because she killed me quickly. That the silence meant it was over. They were wrong. The silence meant she had finally found someone who could hear her. I felt her thoughts settle gently against mine, no longer forcing, no longer tearing. Images slowed. Memories softened. I saw her not as a weapon, not as a prisoner, but as something far more dangerous. A ruler. A queen torn from her world, locked in a cage, surrounded by creatures she didn't understand until now. "You chose me," I said, the realization hollowing my chest. Her eyes never left mine. And in that moment, I understood the true horror of that room. I wasn't locked in there with her. She had locked herself in there with me. I didn't know how long we stood there. Time inside that room behaved differently, as if it bent around her presence. My heartbeat slowed, not because I was calm, but because something else had taken control of the rhythm. Her rhythm. Outside the room, alarms should have been screaming by now. Every previous encounter had lasted seconds, violent, chaotic seconds, but the silence stretched. 1 minute, 2, 5. In the observation chamber, someone finally spoke. "He should be dead." No one answered. Inside, she withdrew her hand. The pressure in my head faded, leaving behind an echo, like standing in an empty hall after a voice stops singing. I swayed slightly, and before I could fall, she steadied me. Her grip was firm, controlled, not possessive, protective. I laughed softly, a broken sound I didn't recognize as my own. "So this is how it ends," I murmured. Not screaming. Not running. Her eyes narrowed just a fraction. The emotion behind them sharpened, not anger but focus, purpose. Again the thoughts came, slower this time, clearer. She showed me the first scream. Not mine, hers. A sky burning the wrong color, towers collapsing inward, small figures, children reaching up as shadows swallowed them, metal birds raining fire, betrayal wrapped in treaties and smiles, humans, not us specifically, not Earth, but my kind. Her people had welcomed us once, studied us, trusted us, and when fear replaced curiosity, we had done what we always did best. We destroyed what we didn't understand. "That's why you're here," I whispered. "You're not a monster, you're a survivor." Her jaw tightened. Pain flickered across her face, quickly buried under something colder. Resolve. A distant vibration rippled through the floor, the facility reacting, power rerouting. Someone on the outside had finally decided that this silence was unacceptable. She felt it too. Her gaze shifted briefly toward the door. For the first time, I sensed hesitation. "They're afraid," I said. "They don't know what's happening in here." Her eyes returned to me. "They never will," her thoughts answered, clear as speech now. The weight of those words settled between us. I understood then that I was standing at the center of something far larger than a failed containment protocol. This wasn't an experiment gone wrong. It was a crossroads. A sharp hiss filled the air as vents along the ceiling opened. Gas, colorless, odorless, designed to incapacitate anything breathing inside the room. My legs buckled instantly. She caught me before I hit the floor. "No," I tried to warn her, but my tongue felt heavy, useless. She inhaled. Nothing happened. Her biology rejected the gas effortlessly, like water sliding off glass. She lowered herself with me, cradling my head against her chest as my vision dimmed. Her heartbeat was steady, unbothered. I clung to that rhythm as consciousness slipped away. The last thing I felt was her hand against my temple and a promise pressed gently into my fading mind. "Sleep. I will not let them take you." When I woke up, the world was wrong. The room was brighter. Not the harsh white of facility lights, but something softer, almost natural. The gas vents were sealed. The walls, scarred and blood-stained in every report I'd seen, were untouched, and the door was open. I sat up too fast, pain lancing through my skull. Strong hands steadied me immediately. She was kneeling beside me, unrestrained, no collars, no fields, no chains. Outside the room, chaos reigned. I could hear it now, shouting, boots pounding against metal floors, weapons being raised and lowered in panicked indecision. No one was entering. No one was leaving, because she was standing in full view of every camera, and she was smiling. Not at them, at me. A voice boomed through the facility speakers, shaking slightly despite the artificial amplification. "This is Director Hale. Step away from the human immediately." She didn't even look up. Her hand tightened around mine. "He belongs to us now," she said aloud for the first time. Her voice wasn't monstrous. It wasn't distorted. It was calm, regal, and terrifyingly clear. Every human in that facility heard it and understood it. No one moved. Not the soldiers lining the corridor with weapons raised. Not the technicians frozen behind reinforced glass. Not Director Hale, whose face now filled every screen in the facility, pale and slick with sweat. "He belongs to us now." Those words echoed longer than they should have, not because the speakers repeated them, but because everyone felt the weight behind them. Ownership wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact. I tried to pull my hand free. Not because I wanted to run, because I needed to know if I still could. Her fingers didn't tighten. She didn't restrain me. She simply looked at me and the question answered itself. I could leave. I just wouldn't survive what came next. "Listen to me," Hale said, forcing authority into his voice. "That human is under my protection. You are surrounded. Stand down and—" She finally looked at him. The temperature in the room dropped, not physically, something deeper. The kind of cold that settles in the spine when prey realizes it has been seen. "You took me from my people," she said calmly. "You watched me scream. You sent them in one by one to die, and you called it research." She gestured toward the sealed observation windows. Several people flinched. "You built this place to break me," she continued, "and failed." Hale swallowed. "You were killing them." "Yes," she agreed, "because they came as threats." Her gaze drifted back to me. He did not. The distinction was razor sharp. I realized then that this entire facility, layers of steel, weapons, protocols, had been balanced on a single fragile assumption. That she saw all humans the same. That assumption was dead. "Release him," Hale said quietly, "and we can negotiate." She smiled again, smaller this time, sadder. "You don't negotiate after cages," she replied. "You beg." A low hum filled the air. Every light flickered. Screens burst into static one by one. Doors throughout the facility unlocked simultaneously, then sealed again under a new command. I felt it through her before I saw it happen, control spreading outward like a living thing. She wasn't escaping, she was taking over. Panic erupted outside. Orders overlapped. Someone fired a weapon. The shot never reached us. The bullet stopped midair, trembling violently, then dropped harmlessly to the floor as if gravity had remembered its job. Silence followed. Absolute, stunned silence. I stared at the fallen round, my mouth dry. "You can do that." I whispered. Her thumb brushed against my knuckles, grounding me. "There is much you do not know about us," she answered. "About me." She stood, drawing me up with her. I expected to feel small beside her. I didn't. She positioned herself half a step in front of me, not hiding me, but making a statement. Anyone who wanted me would have to go through her, and no one in that building believed they could. "You will open the hangar," she said, addressing Hale without looking at him. "You will prepare a ship, and you will transmit a message to my people." Hale's voice cracked. "A message saying what?" Her expression hardened. "That your cages are empty," she said, "and your silence is over." I felt it then, the shift. The moment the story stopped being about survival and became something else entirely. War, or something far more dangerous. Alliance. She turned to me as the facility scrambled to obey. "You came into that room knowing you might die," she said softly. "Why?" I searched myself for the truth. Fear, curiosity. I walked beside her. Not behind. Not ahead, beside. Every step felt unreal. Minutes ago, I had been a disposable asset sent into a room no one survived. Now doors opened before us without a word spoken. Weapons lowered as we passed. Eyes followed us with a mixture of terror and awe. "She's controlling everything," someone whispered as we went by. They were wrong. She wasn't controlling the facility. She was allowing it to function. The ship waited at the center of the hangar. Sleek, organic in design, its surface pulsing faintly as if alive. It wasn't built for humans. Just standing near it made my skin prickle, like my body knew it was in the presence of something ancient. She stopped a few steps from the ramp. I felt it before she said anything, a tightening, subtle but unmistakable, doubt, not fear, something heavier. "You do not have to come further," she said quietly. I looked at her, really looked. Up close, the traces of what she had endured were easier to see. Fine scars along her arms, almost invisible unless the light caught them just right. A faint asymmetry in the way she held herself, like someone who had learned to carry pain without showing it. "They'll never stop," I said, "not after this." "No," she agreed, "they won't." Her eyes searched mine, not as a ruler measuring a subject, but as something far more personal. "If you step onto that ship," she continued, "you will no longer belong to your world." The words hit harder than any threat. I thought of Earth, of routines, of quiet, forgettable days, of a life that suddenly felt impossibly small. "And if I stay?" I asked, her expression softened just slightly. "They will take you from me," she said, "or kill you trying." That was the moment I understood the truth she hadn't spoken yet. This wasn't about protection. It was about choice. I took a breath and stepped closer to the ship. The surface responded immediately, the ramp shifting under my feet to accommodate my weight as if recognizing me. Her eyes widened. "You are already marked," she said softly. "By what?" "By me." The ramp sealed behind us with a sound like a deep exhale. Inside, the air was warmer, alive. Light flowed along the walls in slow patterns that responded to her presence, and unsettlingly to mine. I felt it again, that gentle pressure behind my eyes, but now it wasn't invasive. It was familiar. She placed her hand against a curved panel and the ship hummed in response. "They call me many things in your records," she said. "Subject. Weapon, entity." She turned to face me. "My true name cannot be shaped by your language," she continued. "But among my people I am a voice-bearer, a queen chosen not by blood but by resonance." "Resonance with what?" I asked. "With minds capable of change," she replied. Images flowed into me again, but this time they didn't overwhelm. I saw her world before the fire, vast plains under twin suns, cities grown rather than built, beings connected not by command but by understanding. A civilization that ruled through shared will. And then I saw the moment everything broke. Humans arriving, curious, afraid, armed. The first betrayal wasn't violent, it was quiet, a broken promise, a test conducted without consent. After that, violence became inevitable. "They couldn't control you," I whispered. "No," she said, "so they tried to isolate me." I clenched my fists. "They tortured you." "Yes." She said it without bitterness. "They failed," she added. The ship lurched gently as it disengaged from the hangar. Alarms began to wail outside, distant and useless now. "Your people will come," she said. "They will demand my return or your surrender." "And what will your people do?" I asked. Her gaze held mine, steady and unflinching. "They will listen," she said, "because you heard me." The implication settled heavily between us. I wasn't just a witness. I was proof. The ship surged forward, stars stretching into lines of light beyond the viewport. Somewhere behind us, a facility built to break her disappeared into nothing. Ahead of us lay a future neither species had planned for. She reached for my hand again, not to claim it, to anchor herself. And I realized with a mix of awe and quiet dread that the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't her power. It was the bond she had chosen to form with a human. The stars did not blur forever. At a point I couldn't measure, the ship slowed, not by force but by intent. The light outside rearranged itself, folding inward like curtains being drawn aside. Space opened. I felt it before I saw it, a presence, not one mind, many, layered, overlapping, watching. Her hand tightened around mine, not in fear but in warning. "They are aware of you," she said. "Remain open, do not resist." The ship emerged above a world that looked nothing like the images in human databases. No harsh angles, no rigid structures. The surface below flowed, vast formations grown from stone and light, cities shaped like spirals and arcs, breathing slowly as if the planet itself was alive. I couldn't speak. You spend your life believing your species is the center of every story. Then you see something like this, and that belief collapses quietly without drama. We descended into a great concave structure, open to the sky. As the ship settled, the air around us shimmered. Figures began to appear, not walking in, not descending, but resolving into existence as if they had always been there and I was only just now allowed to see them. Alien women. All similar to her yet distinct. Different heights, subtle variations in skin tone and features, but the same unmistakable presence. Authority without aggression, power without noise. They looked at me, not with hatred, with curiosity. A ripple moved through them, passing from one to the next. I felt it brush against my mind, an echo of her touch multiplied. A voice rose among them, not spoken, shared. This is the human, not a human, the human, I swallowed. They know who I am. They know what you are to me, she corrected gently. She stepped forward, releasing my hand. For the first time since we met, distance opened between us, and I felt it like the sudden absence of gravity. She knelt. The sight stole my breath, a queen lowering herself before her people, not in submission but in communion. The others mirrored her movement, forming a wide circle around us. Memory surged. They saw everything. The room, the silence, the moment she chose not to kill. And they saw me, terrified, shaking, yet standing. A murmur passed through the collective. He did not break. He did not dominate. He listened. She rose and turned back to me. You are changed, she said quietly. They feel it. I looked down at my hands. They were the same, scarred, human, but inside something had shifted, a widening, as if a door had opened and never closed again. What does that mean? I asked. It means, she said, you can no longer return to ignorance. One of the others stepped forward. Her presence was heavier, older. When she focused on me, the pressure behind my eyes intensified, not painful but demanding. Why did you stay? The shared voice asked. I didn't answer immediately. The truth was layered. Because running would have made me smaller, I said at last, and because she deserved to be seen. The pressure eased, approval. A realization struck me then, sharp and unsettling. They weren't deciding whether to accept me. They were deciding what to do with me. She is bound to you now, the elder present said. Resonance has occurred. I turned to her sharply. Bound. She didn't look away. Yes, she said, by choice. The word mattered. Around us the air shifted. I sensed tension, not hostility but concern. Human bonds are unstable, the collective warned, they fracture. I won't, I said instinctively. The response came instantly. You already have. Images flashed, Earth growing distant, my former life dissolving into abstraction. The way the ship responded to me, the ease with which her thoughts reached mine now, they were right. I had fractured. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be whole again. She stepped closer, close enough that only I could hear her voice now. This path will cost you, she said softly. They may demand sacrifice. I know, I replied, more than life. I met her gaze. Then I'll decide when the time comes. Something like pride touched her expression. The elder presence withdrew slightly. Then he will remain, the collective agreed, not as captive, not as ruler, as witness. The word echoed through me. Witness to what? War, peace. The slow, dangerous merging of two species that didn't know how to trust. She took my hand again, not to anchor herself this time, to stand beside me. And in that moment, surrounded by a world that was not mine, watched by beings older and wiser than anything humanity had known, I understood the final truth of my choice. I hadn't been chosen because I was special. I was chosen because I was willing to change. The first human ship arrived 3 cycles later. I felt it before anyone spoke its name. A sharp disturbance at the edge of perception, like a thorn dragged across a shared nerve. The collective stiffened. Light across the structures dimmed, responding to a threat not yet visible to the eye. She stopped walking mid-step. "They found us," I said. "Yes," she replied. "Sooner than I hoped." The sky above the concave city shifted. A shadow appeared, angular, metallic, wrong against the organic curves of the world. Human design, efficient, armed. Fear rippled through the collective, not as panic but as calculation. They were not a species that reacted blindly. "They will demand me," she said, "and they will demand you." I watched the ship descend into orbit, memories of alarms and sealed doors crawling back into my chest. "They won't come peacefully." "No," she agreed, "they will come desperate." The elder presence gathered the others. I felt the weight of their attention settle on me again, heavier than before. "The resonance is accelerating," the shared voice warned. "His structure is adapting." I staggered as a sudden wave of heat surged through me. My vision fractured briefly, colors separating into layers I had no words for. She was at my side instantly, steadying me. "What's happening to me?" I asked through clenched teeth. "Your mind opened first," she said softly. "Your body is following." I laughed weakly. "That wasn't part of the agreement." "There was no agreement," she replied. "Only consequence." The human ship broadcast a signal, open, unencrypted. "Return the asset," Director Hale's voice echoed across the city, amplified and thin with strain. "This is your final warning." Asset, the word hit harder than any threat. She turned toward the sky, her posture straightening, something ancient and unyielding settling over her features. "You hear how they speak of you," she said quietly, "of us." "I know," I replied. "That's why I won't go back." Her gaze snapped to mine. For the first time since we met, I saw fear there, not for herself, for me. "They will not stop," she said. "They will take your world hostage if they must." "I know," I said again, "which is why this ends here." The elder presence moved closer, her attention sharp. "The human offers himself." The words echoed across the collective, drawing stunned stillness in their wake. She gripped my arm. "No. They don't want you," I said. "They want control. I'm the bridge they can't tolerate." "That makes you invaluable," she said fiercely. "That makes me expendable," I countered. The sky darkened as more human vessels slipped into orbit, too many, too fast. War was seconds away. I turned to the elder presence. "If I go to them willingly, will they stand down?" A long pause followed. Temporarily, the collective answered. "Humans fracture under time." She shook her head violently. "I will not allow it." I placed my hand over hers, feeling the familiar pulse, the shared rhythm that had grown between us. "You chose me because I could hear you," I said gently. "Let me speak now." Her eyes searched mine, desperate, furious, pleading all at once. "You will die," she whispered. "Not today," I replied, "and not like they expect." Something shifted inside me then, sharp, definitive. The pain vanished, replaced by clarity. I could feel the collective without strain now, every voice, every thought. The elder presence reacted instantly. The transformation has crossed the threshold. I looked at my hands again. They were no longer entirely human. "I won't be their asset," I said, "and I won't be your weapon." I looked back at her. "I'll be the proof they can't cage what they don't understand." She drew me into her arms, forehead resting against mine. The bond flared bright, aching, complete. "If you do this," she said, voice breaking, "you will never belong anywhere again." I met her gaze, steady and certain. "I already don't," I said. "That's why this works." I stepped forward toward the waiting ships, toward the silence that would follow. Behind me, an entire world held its breath. And for the first time since humanity reached for the stars, the universe prepared to listen to one of its own being changed by contact instead of conquest. They did not take me by force. That was the first thing that unsettled them. When my shuttle detached from the alien world and drifted toward the human fleet, weapons locked onto me instantly. Targeting systems hummed. Orders overlapped. Fingers hovered over triggers trained to respond to fear, not understanding. I transmitted a single message. "I'm coming willingly." Silence followed. They pulled me aboard the flagship with caution bordering on reverence. Magnetic fields scanned me. Medical teams hesitated before touching me. I could hear their heartbeats, irregular, nervous, long before they realized I was listening. Director Hale stood waiting in the containment chamber. He looked older, smaller. "You've changed," he said. "Yes," I replied. "You belong to us," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. I stepped closer. Every light in the chamber flickered in response, not because I commanded them, but because they felt me. "I don't belong," I said calmly, "and neither does she." He raised a hand. "You don't understand the consequences." "I understand them perfectly," I interrupted. "That's why I'm here." Behind his eyes, calculations spun. "Control, leverage, narrative, what are you?" he finally asked. I considered the question. "I'm what happens," I said, "when you fail to break something." The chamber doors sealed. Gas vents hissed open. I smiled. This time it didn't work. Panic flashed across his face as systems failed one by one, not overridden but rejected.